The answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. That theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. I want to go back to what we started the show with because it bears repeating. It's a real seminal moment in the tenure of Larry Snelling as the Chicago police superintendent, in my view. And this involves the details of the assailant who's been charged in that West Rogers Park shooting rampage that almost killed, or could have killed, responding police and fire, and he almost assassinated a Jewish gentleman on his way to synagogue, Orthodox Jewish gentleman. He shot him in the shoulder, and as we now know, he was standing over him and ready to execute him, and his gun jammed, and the Jewish gentleman was able to escape.
And then he left, and then he came back once first responders arrived to finish the job and shot at them. And no first responders were hit, but the ambulance was hit.
So here was Snelling's presser yesterday, what he would say, and importantly, what he wouldn't.
There was something stated from that individual while he was exchanging gunfire with officers.
What did he say?
And if I may, Chief Rossetti, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, passing the buck.
Sure, without getting into anything too much, the statement that was made while he was engaging our officers is nothing that we could bring in as evidence at this point that would support any motive against his actions towards our officers as well as towards our victim.
Was it believed to be English, another language? What did he say?
We're not going to be able to put out that information right now because I want to make sure I'm not misstating anything, and so we can coordinate through the Office of News Affairs because I am certainly not going to misspeak and have there be any misunderstanding about the statement. So as appropriate, we will get that information out through News Affairs.
And then is the suspect a resident of Chicago? Is the suspect a citizen of this country?
That is still under investigation right now. Right now, we're trying to identify a valid address. So we're still working on that information right now.
How soon could you make a decision about whether hate crime charges will be recommended?
When evidence of the facts present themselves.
Now, I don't know if he's being, told or asked by the state's attorney's office to stay silent on these matters or what, but either way, he shouldn't. He knows the same thing that I know that I got yesterday from a Chicago police source, and posted, but he won't say it. First of all, if the assailant indeed said Allahu Akbar, how is that not a relevant fact in terms of charges against him for the attempted murder of that Jewish guy? Secondly, we know pretty good information here, as we mentioned earlier, arrested in San Diego. He's from Mauritania.
Yeah.
Arrested in San Diego in March of 2023, was supposed to be deported. Unclear if he was deported and made his way back to Chicago or just made his way from San Diego to Chicago. That's unclear. He obtained an Illinois driver's license in May of this year and bought a purple Mazda that was located at the scene of the crime. We're trying to locate. We're trying to We're trying to locate an address on him. Says Larry Snelling. I have his address. I have his current address. So Chicago police have his current address. So Larry Snelling has his current address.
Why even have the press conference then if you're not going to say what really happened?
Because you have to respond with something.
Yeah, but
you have somebody in custody, so people are going to want to know. But the choice they're making to not fully level with Chicagoans for the purpose, clearly, of trying to tamp down yet another embarrassing, high-profile public safety failure because of open borders and sanctuary city policies that implicates Jelly Belly, that implicates BLM Brandon, and it implicates their D.C. buddies. So, doing political damage control for politicians is not the job of law enforcement.
No, it should not be. Politics should be kept out of it. And they're clearly doing this because we have an election next week, and we have a Muslim, allegedly, trying to kill a Jewish person walking to synagogue on Saturday with
we have
his
somebody,
yarmulke on.
No, it doesn't matter that he's Muslim. We have somebody. I mean, it
He's
doesn't
here illegally. I mean,
that's what matters.
It's everything. It's the illegal issue, and it's the issue with the Gaza and Israel war.
Well,
combined.
We have no idea if that's it. I mean, he's from Northwest Africa. If he's from Mauritania, so it may have to do with just general hatred of Jews when he allegedly said Allahu Akbar and then opened fire. That could very well be the case. But anyway, regardless, what you know that doesn't jeopardize the prosecution, and none of this does, should be divulged. But that's not what Larry Snelling is choosing to do, and it's a problem. For more on this, Ted Dabrowski, thanks for joining us as always.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy.
This is, it's funny. It's another transparency issue, and very much like fiscal responsibility. Everybody talks transparency until they're in a position to affect transparency, and then they're not so committed to it.
No, I mean, what you're talking about with regard to Snelling, it's disappointing so far. I tell you, he's the one guy that I've heard a lot of good things about. First of all,
yeah, me too.
Two, right when he came on, I can't remember. I actually did a reel, Instagram reel on it. That he said things that you haven't heard from a police leader. He sounded like he's willing to take on the system a bit and not follow the rules you're talking about. But let's see what he does. I've been optimistic on him, but I don't know enough about that situation to talk about it. But you'd think that. It'd be nice for a little bit more transparency, but yeah, forget it. We're not getting that right now. Not from these guys.
Thinking about the Illinois election, obviously the Cook County State's Attorney's race is relevant, but at the statewide level, there's a ballot question that you and your colleague John Klingner wrote about the millionaire surcharge. You want to distill that for us?
Yeah. So the progressive tax failed in 2020. Pritzker spent a lot of money on it, tried to get it passed. And what was amazing about that one was that, he structured it such that 3% of the wealthy people in Illinois would pay higher taxes, and 97% would get some kind of small tax cut. So he structured that progressive tax referendum, constitutional change, to pass. I mean, it should have been a slam dunk, and it didn't because people didn't trust Pritzker and the Illinois politicians. They knew that at some point that progressive taxes come after middle-income people, I should say, and so they rejected it. But now they're trying back again. This time they're sweetening the offer. It's not a binding referendum, so meaning it's not law, but it would inform the politicians about what's the best way to go after another progressive tax. And what they're doing is they're saying they're going to charge 3%, a surcharge of 3% on people who make $1 million or more. And they'd have to pay that 3% on the amount over $1 million. And in exchange for that, they're promising some kind of property tax relief. But that's where it all falls apart, because we know these guys they'll take the money and they'll never give that property tax relief. And then if we grant these politicians power again with a progressive tax, watch out, because we've already lost a lot of our wealthy people already, and this would chase out even more people and, of course, create that negative spiral that would make a mess.
So Mayor Johnson has to present his budget plan to the city council tomorrow, and lo and behold, I mean, who would have thunk it? Three aldermen who spoke to the Tribune said that, property tax increases back on the board in 2025 to help with the budget. And I'm old enough to remember when he campaigned on this, just listening, because it's lazy to raise property taxes.
Under a Johnson administration, I'm not raising property taxes.
Well, so I'm not going to raise property taxes. That's been the lazy form of governance for a very long time in the city of Chicago and, quite frankly, around the country.
We have to make sure that we're not raising revenue off the backs of working people.
And that's why I'm the only candidate who's committed to not raising property taxes. Communities have been hit hard.
Are you surprised by this move with Brandon Johnson?
No, I'm not surprised. Look, he came into that campaign, had no idea what he was talking about. He thought he was going to get all these, 15 different taxes, taxing Wall Street, taxing this, taxing that, and he's gotten none of them. And Springfield hasn't helped him at all. They've actually kind of just rejected him, told him to stay away. And so he's left with the only one that's the most efficient to do and the easiest to do, which is just raise property taxes. They can do that at the city level. And he's got $1 billion hole. He has no plan on how to fix it. His only plan will be to raid the TIFs, which is what they like to do, raid the TIFs, and that'll help CPS as well, and hike property taxes. And that's again, it's another nail in the coffin, and more people are going to leave. And he promised he wouldn't do it. I don't know if that was that Illinois Policy Institute reel, but it was well done because this mayor, when he was a candidate, said so many times he would not do that he was the only one that would not raise property taxes. And here you go.
Exigent circumstances. He didn't anticipate how much money he would spend, how much of other people's money he would spend on people in this city and in this country illegally. And, the COVID money is run out. So in order to keep all these plates spinning, you got to do some things you may otherwise not have wanted to do. But what about the reviving the head tax or higher hotel tax to make it even less attractive as a tourist destination? Maybe a surcharge on real estate transfer tax for homes over $1 million. What else can we? A city income tax? How about? What about that?
Yeah, city income tax. That. Don't be surprised. At some point that might be the following year, depending on who's in power and all that. But they're going to run out of ways to keep taxing, and they're not going to reform anything. And of course, if they sign a new contract for CPS, this can put even bigger burdens on people. Because remember, it's the same households that have to pay the taxes for the city, which has $1 billion deficit, and the Chicago Public Schools, which has $1 billion deficit, and CTA, which is going to be close to $1 billion. I tell you, if you're a Chicago homeowner, you are just in trouble.
We got
you're even bigger trouble.
Yeah, and CTA RTA. Let's fold in the suburbs. We got a call earlier in the week, or was it last week? Anyway, there's somebody with a good handle on this CTA RTA merger gambit. That's just a way to socialize the city's flailing transportation system, isn't it?
Oh yeah, come on, it's just another way to figure out how to combine them. Then you increase your tax base, right? And that's smart on their part, of course. And they're saying they want $1.5 billion. It's and again, it's funny because I was in the private sector all my life at Citibank, and then one summer I got to work at CTA when I went back to grad school.
You did?
And I went to
keep the hat?
for 3 months.
Wow.
I was older, right? I was like in 43 or something like that.
Oh.
Any difference? Anything different in terms of culture or operation between CTA and your private bank?
Yeah, well, Citibank was a big, monstrous bank, bureaucratic as well, right? But still, it had a profit motive, and there's other things we could discuss about Citibank. But at CTA, you could just see people stand around, sit around, and do nothing. It was so heavy in terms of just people that you knew that if you fired 30% of the place, it would become much more efficient because people would have responsibility. So there's so much money in these. We talked about this. CPS has hired 9,000 new staff in the last 5 years. They're just all fat and they don't teach and they don't anyway.
Well, CTA, they ain't heavy. They my brothers, Ted. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right?
How long were you with the CTA, Ted?
Oh, it was just 3 months. It was like this internship, and my gosh, was I a fish out of water.
Did you get to drive any of the trains?
I actually got to do a couple cool things like that, but that was fun.
You did get to do it?
It was funny. What I did get to do is they asked me to create a metrics page that they should follow in order to improve operations. But I think I was doing too good of a job. They didn't want to look at it.
Oh.
So
it was a phony internship.
Did you ever have a moment on a CTA train like Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay at the end of Risky Business?
Okay. I was thinking more like the holiday train. Was he driving the holiday train? And you went there and I went there.
There's a question on the table.
Okay.
Well,
Don't dodge
That
me,
didn't
Kamala.
happen. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So-
All right. Just
Well,
trying
yeah,
to get a handle on your career at CTA.
Hey, real quick, I want people to just make sure they go out and look for some comments on crime by McHenry State's Attorney Patrick Kennelly, and then of course look at what's happening in Springfield, announcing that they have a 10% increase in crime. It's hard to get those numbers from outside Chicago, but it's good to hear a couple people speak up about how things aren't going well with the Safety Act.
Ted Dabrowski, President of Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, guys.
Choo-choo, Ted. He joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
If you're self-employed and purchase your own health insurance, I have some great news. From now until January 15th, the health insurance exchanges are open again. And even if you've never qualified for a health insurance subsidy before, you most likely will now. The American Rescue Plan expanded subsidy eligibility to millions of Americans who have never qualified before, even to those with high income levels. And this year, you can purchase a multi-state PPO policy, which includes access to Northwestern Medical Group, as well as other teaching hospitals around the nation. Employers who provide small group coverage also have new options, and so do seniors looking for Medicare supplement coverage. Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Obamacare, then you need a local expert on your side. C. Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust.
He's a 30-year licensed broker
who's been educating our listeners for more than 10 years. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630